So, here we are.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello again.
Yes. And so, Taru and Ulla, and our theme is how much is much. Ulla, what do you actually mean with this how much is much stuff?
Yeah, I mean that there are many things in your everyday life that you take for granted. This is how it is. But when you start to think that how much is it really, like how much is it in money or in kilometers or in whatever volumes, then you could be really surprised. And when we are talking about circular economy, the volumes, kilograms, even euros makes difference.
Okay.
So I think that is a very essential thing we should consider when talking about circular economy.
Yeah, great. And you prepared some questions to do with paper and paperboard production, which you
Right.
know so well. And we've divided this now into 3 different sections: production, consumption and recycling, and volumes.
Right.
So let's start with the production.
Yes, as you said, I'm a paper maker
Yeah.
from my background. And I think that every Finn at least should understand the volumes and the perspective where we stand.
Yeah.
And as a first question, I was asking how much paper and paperboard are really manufactured in the whole world. And I had 4 alternatives: 4 million tons per year, 40 million tons per year, or 400 million tons per year. And this, of course, can be a very tricky question if you don't have any idea how many paper machines there are in the world or what is the average production of a paper mill. And let's say there are thousands of paper mills or paper machines in the world, but you cannot say average production is this or that, because there are, for example, in Western countries and partly also in China today, there are huge paper machines. And let's say the biggest paper machines that are around 11 meters wide, and the production speed could be something like 2,000 meters per minute. And an average production could be something like 400 tons per year. But there are also very small ones with less than 100 tons per year. But the total production of paper and paperboard produced each year is around 400 million tons.
Okay.
And even though, one more thing, even though we think that paper is going to disappear from the world, that is not the case. There are certain grades that will disappear for sure, like newsprint, for example, because when we have everything on screen and online, the paper is it's a history what we read from the papers.
Yeah.
Short history, but anyway, history. But anyway, so there is slight growth, even though we think that paper production is going down.
Okay. Interesting.
So 400 million tons per year is the right answer. So alternative C.
Yeah.
And then we come to the question, what about Finland? Sometimes we think that we Finns are big paper and paperboard producers. And sometimes maybe the ones that are not at all interested maybe think that, are there any paper production in Finland? Yes, there is. And the paper and paperboard production in Finland is only 2.5% of the global production.
Yeah.
And that means it's around 10 million tons per year. And it used to be much bigger, so it has declined.
Yeah.
So for some 5 years ago, I think the top production rate was something like 13 million tons per year, like 3 million tons more than today. And the reason why it has declined is that there has been shutdowns of paper machines because of lack of requests or need of newsprint, for example, and magazine papers.
Okay, so not the demand.
Yeah, right. So 2.5% is the right answer, which refers to the 10 million tons per year that is produced in Finland, paper and paperboard.
Okay.
And we have in Finland, we have 17 paper mills still existing and 14 paperboard mills.
Okay. So this is in 2019.
Yes,
The
yes,
situation.
right,
Yeah.
right. And besides that, we have, of course, pulp mills, and very typically the pulp mills, they produce the pulp for the company's own paper and paperboard mills.
Okay.
And for those who do not know the difference, what is paper and paperboard, you could say that the grammage is the difference.
Mm-hmm.
The thicker the product, the more likely you call it paperboard or
Okay.
carton board.
Yeah.
But there are also, let's say, the gray area, like thick papers, and on the other side, thin paperboards. And I always say to my students that the difference is that paper is produced with a paper machine and paperboard is produced with a paperboard machine.
Okay.
And the difference between those is that paperboard is typically a multiply product, which means, again, from the perspective of let's say, using raw material a clever way, is that in the middle layer you have something that is not so valuable as you have in the outer layers.
Right.
So very typically paperboard is a 3-layer product, and therefore the machine has to be different.
Okay. And paperboard is relatively easy to recycle, am I right?
Yeah, both are easy to recycle, but you put them typically into different bins when you are collecting paper and paperboard, and that is the reason that in paperboard you typically have more valuable raw material, more long fibers, more chemical fibers, and therefore you want to recycle them and use them in products where strength properties are needed.
Okay, right. So how we recycle matters.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Right. And
So that was question number 2. And then we come to question number 3, where I thought that it's, at least for me, it's interesting to know where we stand as a paper and paperboard producer in the world. So what country is the biggest paper and paperboard producer? And I think that is not a surprise for anyone, that is China. China is making over 25% of the whole world's production, and that is very, very much.
yeah.
And what is interesting is that China has really become the world biggest producer within last 10 years.
Okay.
It used to be much smaller. The paper machines in China used to be almost as tiny as a huge table or something.
Right.
Lots and lots of, the number of paper and paperboard machines were big, but they did not have any big ones. But as you know, also Finnish companies have gone to China. They have the biggest machines there. Also other companies that have now started to make their production there. And the production in China is really over 100 million tons per year.
Even though they don't have the raw material.
And that is surprising, yes.
Okay.
And also their recycling rate is very low, so they even import recycled fiber.
Wow.
But so that is really little bit strange. And the next biggest producer is United States, and they have lots of consumption, so that is quite easy to understand. But after that, the third, fourth, and tenth, they are totally in a different range in their production. As you can see from this figure presented in question number 3. So Finland is standing on the place of 8th. Together with there is Sweden, even Indonesia, Canada, Brazil, all about the same amount. So we are not as, let's say, with 2.5% of the global production, we are not big ones.
Yeah.
But what I think is important to know that many of these environmental friendly technologies have been developed in Finland, and they have been then distributed to other countries. And I'm very happy that we also have in China today mills where all these wastewater and emissions are taken good care of.
Okay, wonderful. So I think that was what we wanted to say about production. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Ulla.
You're welcome.